Hey there, if you want to improve your success rate grant writing, one of the best ways you can do that is to improve the quality of grants that you pursue so that you just have better odds that you're successful. And so there's typically 3 tests that I use to decide if something is worth my time or not, that are kind of my easy go, no go decision making tools. Of course, dig in deeper, and we'll get into that in subsequent videos when you really are drilling into if it's a good pursuit or not. But this at least gives you a yes, I'll go after this, or no, this is a waste of time framework for making your decisions. So the first test is, has the funder awarded similar projects or to similar organizations as ours? A good indicator of future giving is past giving history. If you're looking at a nonprofit foundation, the best way to look up this information is to go look at their 990 forms that are filed with the IRS. These forms tell you everything about their past giving history, who they gave to, in what amounts, etc. So there's 2 ways you can do this. One is go on to foundationcenter.org and you can type in any nonprofit foundation and pull those forms for free, which is great. It's just an IRS form, so it's really cumbersome to get through. The other option is if you have an instrumental.com subscription, that's an online grant database that we are a huge fan of. You can actually look at their giving history in a very easy, user-friendly format, which I'll show you right now as an example. Here's an example of a project that I'm going through right now, and I'm trying to figure out, well, of all of these grant programs that interest me, what are the select 2 to 5 that I actually should be pursuing? So I'm going through the exact steps I'm talking about with you today in figuring out, is it a go or no go? So when you open it up, the card here, the grant details are really useful, but I'm clicking on the 990 report. I like that I can see the average grant amount. I can see where the organization is based out of. I like to be able to see in the giving history how much funding they're actually awarding. So a $300 million program is healthy. I also like to take a look at the number of grants that they award. If they only fund, perhaps, let's say, really they're funding one organization and annually, then obviously it wouldn't make sense to apply. Then it's nice to go down here and you can look at the past grantees from every year they filed with the IRS. And so clearly they do the bulk of their giving in California, and the rest is sort of spread out through the rest of the other states. So let's say we're in Washington and we want to see how much funding they're giving to the state of Washington. Click on that and it's going to drill down the list further. So now I can see the organization, the amount of funding they made, and for what purpose. And this is extremely helpful because now we can really decide, okay, are they funding organizations like ours? What do they like to fund? And what are sort of the amount that we could expect to pursue funding for? So this is a really helpful way to get an idea of if this is a good fit for you or not. And perhaps you'll find, oh, wow, they say they have a foundation giving program, but they actually haven't made a single award in 3 years. Well, obviously we wouldn't waste our time there. So it's just very helpful, the information you can draw from these 990 reports, and I highly recommend it. In the description notes, we'll add a discount code for Instrumental. It saves you basically a month subscription fee, and we really like it. I use it almost every day. If you're not applying for nonprofit foundation funding and you're just looking at perhaps a state grant or a federal grant, the next best option there is to pull their past giving history, which is typically given in downloadable PDFs or available in a press release, etc. And so you can basically look at those files and see, is there some crossover here? Does it make sense for them to give to a project or organization like our own? I'll give you an example. I was looking for skate park funding in Massachusetts, and there was an interesting park and recreation fund that I really wanted to pursue, but skate parks are kind of on the fringe, so I didn't know if it would be really perceived as a park or not. And so I downloaded all of their past giving history, like 8-9 years of the program, used Control F, the find feature in the PDF, and typed in skate park. And sure enough, I'd found one other project that had funded a skate park previously, which actually gave us then someone else to reach out to and figure out how they got their project funded and perhaps even ask for a copy of their application, right? So there's a lot of good information you can find out from this. But that gave me kind of the confidence that if I recommend we pursue this grant, at least I know they have funded a skate park before. So you're looking for that kind of information in your first test. Does this funder support organizations and projects like ours? Okay, so test number 2, and this is really one of the easiest ones and probably should really be the first test you do, is how competitive is the grant program? What is my likelihood of getting funded? So the easiest way to calculate this is take the number of grants made in the last cycle divided by the total number of applicants. So let's say 24 grants are funded, or 24 applicants are funded, and 100 people applied. That means you have a 24% chance of your application being successful. Now, you may say to me, but our proposal is going to be perfect and super strong, and so we have better odds. Yes, I hope that is the case, but we need non-subjective data when you're just trying to make a go, no-go decision. And here's why. When it gets too competitive, it doesn't matter if you have a perfect proposal. You're just dealing with too many other perfect proposals, and it's hard to win in that situation. So my rule of thumb is typically 20% likelihood of success or more. And I will go down to like 13, 14%, but I don't like to because, again, you're just getting into bad odds. So if you can do that math quickly, it's a nice way to know, is this actually worth my time? Because some grant programs are literally less than 1% of the applicants get funded, so don't bother. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how do I find out how many applicants actually applied? And usually that information is not available online. So this is a very easy question to take to a funder and ask them specifically. How many applications did you receive last year? What % of those were successful? And just get that information from them. A lot of times too, a grant program just gets more competitive every year as more applicants get their act together. So maybe it was good, it was a reasonable pursuit 3 years ago, but things change and now it's too competitive to be worth your time. So rule of thumb, test how competitive the grant program is, target 20% or better chance of getting funded. Test number 3, what is the true cost of preparing this proposal? And is that less than the value of the grant you're pursuing? If you're pursuing a $1,000 grant, but it's going to take you 20 hours to prepare the proposal and submit it, and then, I don't know, another 10 just even to manage it and do the reporting afterwards, is that worth it? Probably not. So a lot of times it's really helpful to think, what are the hours I'm going to have to put into pursuing this? Value your time. Let's say your hourly rate plus benefits. So let's say it's, $35, $40 an hour, and you're then multiplying that by the 20 hours it takes you to do this, and all of a sudden it just doesn't make sense to pursue something. The exception to the rule is if you are a new nonprofit and you're just trying to gain credibility, show that you can manage funds properly, etc., then yes, sometimes you need to start with really, really small grant awards so that you can kind of build your credibility and go pursue those bigger applications later on. But this is just generally a nice way to look at, do I really want to go after this or not? How much time are we putting into this for the amount of that grant award? So with that, those are the 3 tests I use when I'm deciding if I want to pursue a project or not. Does the funder support this project or something like our type of project and organization? Number 2, how competitive is it? Do I have a 20% or better chance of success? And then number 3, is the cost to prepare this less than the cost of the grant award? So with that, good luck in deciding which opportunities are worth pursuing or not. There's a lot more that goes into deciding if it is a go or not, but this at least gives you a go, no-go platform for deciding if you want to look into something more. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask.